Yeah, thank you, CCTC, for always hosting our event. We're really thankful for our quarterly month of collaboration where we, the Gateway Series, try to host quarterly events on professional development, equipping and empowering Asian Americans or Asian in general on transforming to that. I really want to introduce our speaker today, Jen Leung, who is a co-founder of Twitter Asians, really successful space that she developed back then,
8 years ago.
8 years ago, and but and we love what she's doing, and it was launched in 2017 as a BRG to empower, develop, and engage employees to various social and professional initiatives. Recently, she has left Twitter, and she ran the security technology team as the head of global technology, corporate security, and led a uniquely diverse team of security professionals. She earned BS in computer science with a minor in mathematics at JSU, and prior to Twitter, she worked at a security software startup, held several engineering roles through Packet. She also served as an advisory board for a startup and chief of operations for a nonprofit. And she's a proud first-generation Chinese American, raised in San Francisco, and a mommy to a Vietnamese Chinese family. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you.
Now, today we're going to talk about leadership style, understanding navigating through different leadership styles. And Jen, do you mind telling the audience here what types of leadership styles are there?
Well, I mean, first thing you should know about me is I'm not an expert on leadership. I didn't read any books. I didn't study it. It's just purely organic and based on my experience and career. So I don't really have like a label per se. I know we sent out at Harvard different types of leadership style. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I think there was, how many is there? Like 10?
It's around 10.
10.
Yeah.
I would say that probably 7 of them. And it was hard for me to decide any one over the other because I truly feel that in order to be a great leader, you have to lead based on the person you're leading with. Mm-hmm. So you adapt your style based on that person. So all the different ones like collaborator, if the person is really wanting a manager to collaborate, like that's the role that I play, right? Because my job is really to grow that person, right, in any way that I can, right, both professionally, skills, and also to develop them so they can create relationships going forward.
Right. And that's the important part. Working with different styles, having them, you mentioned a lot of trust, right?
Yes.
Having your team to trust you, whatever style they have, and to have them believe what you want to say, and that you can have your deliverables, delivered to them, and also see what resource they have to you, and what resource they have to them. So I guess to get that trust and work with people with different styles, how would you go about it?
Well, I think the first thing is really to understand the person you're leading. Where are they coming from? Are, is English their first language or second language? Do they have a family? Are they expats? Are they not from this country, right? If you understand their background and where they come from, you can better kind of understand where their head's at, as growing them as a team. Because that's how you build trust, right? The other thing too is we all have busy lives. Right? We all have, I swear a lot, so we all have a lot of shit, right, that we deal with, right? And so like, for you to assume that someone comes to work with and is able to just shut that out, that's a mistake, right? So equally, I share with them the things that I deal with. Mm-hmm. And I encourage them to share the things that they're dealing with. And then that enables us to build a trust and a relationship. And then we do work, right? So it's really building a relationship with that person first, and work will come, right? But build that relationship first, understand where they're coming from. Then you can better kind of work with them and see where their head's at.
Yeah, and that's very important. I just want to let the audience know that this will be very interactive. So please feel free to speak up if you have any thoughts or comments, especially if people on Zoom as well. We want to include everyone. And I guess you want to ask the question, like, what's your honest name?
No, I can do that for a larger group next time. I think
Okay.
it's gonna, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think let's talk about like the managers that you are currently working with. So if you have like a manager that's very goal oriented, very focused,
Mhm.
right? And like all they care about are the metrics, and they're not really a people person, they're very task oriented.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Versus you yourself, you're very team oriented, but you have a issue in getting to that person and trying to communicate to them. They're great with the executives, but not so for team because they
Yes,
don't understand
yeah.
the trends levels. And I've been there, I've experienced that. And can you talk more about that experience, how you would handle that?
Yeah, well, I would say all of us have had a really shitty manager,
Right.
right? And we've also worked with really great managers,
Mm.
right? But if you're a leader, you should figure out the type of manager you want,
Mm.
right? So, and that takes your experience from learning from bad managers, learning from good managers. Maybe if you are a task-oriented manager,
Mm.
and the person you're working with really doesn't kind of function that way. I call it work languages, right?
Mm.
Like they don't feel productive in being task oriented, and then you are a manager who's very task oriented. Like it's bound to fail, right?
Mm.
So it's really more understanding how they operate and
Mhm.
how you can basically create a relationship where they're thriving, they're delivering, they have a great impact, and you're still being a leader. So it's not necessarily always being task oriented or being one way, right? Obviously, we all don't want to be bad managers,
Right.
but you have to be conscious and take an effort to be a good manager. And that takes a lot more work than being a bad manager, right? So I think taking a step back and really understanding what's the best way to get the best out of the person that's working for you,
Mhm.
you're going to become a better manager that way. So you cannot have the same way of leadership for every single person because everyone's different,
What is
right?
Yeah.
Also, everyone is dealing with a lot of different things, right? Especially during the pandemic, everyone I think was a little bit more trusting in sharing that with other people, whereas I think before people weren't. But that also builds team trust, right? And so if you're struggling and I'm on your team working with you as a peer, and I understand the struggles that you're going through, as a leader, I want to encourage all of us to kind of help each other.
Yeah. And to circulate that trust and have them open up, what's your recommendation? It's like, hey, did you send them like on Slack like a meme or an
Yeah.
emoji? It's like, hey, I'm not trying to get into your DMs. It's like, hey, I just need some little help here or there. But
Yeah.
like, what's a way to like like basically it's like
Yeah.
relieve them so like they could like open up and not be so like, oh, I'm just all work all the time. Basically, you're at work and you're trying to also you're working them for a while, 8 hours a day. You're spending most of your life with them, and you eventually you want to be friends with them, have a good relationship, right? So it's that like you said, that mutual trust and that team building to get them. But like not a lot of people they're easy to open up.
It's hard for people to share, but I think people are more bound to share when they can relate and have a common understanding with someone else who's also dealing with the same things. So one thing that I do for team meetings, which may or may not be, something that everyone can use in all different, technologies and different type of companies, but I'll spend the majority of the time encouraging everyone. So sometimes the topic will be like, tell me something that was really shitty that happened to you over the weekend. I'll start, right? And I'll tell them something really shitty that happened to me that I'm struggling with, that's really kind of on my head. And then encourage everyone else, not mandatory, but encourage them. Hey, is there anything else going on? Oh, my kid is sick.
Yeah.
Oh, my parents are not doing well. I have to, spend time to take care of them.
Yeah.
By doing this as a team, like together we get closer as a team because we're sharing, we're being more vulnerable as a team. And I think that'll also help with making people more comfortable to share what's going on.
Yes, I agree. So establishing that, that personal connection rather than just thinking about work all the time, just goals like, hey, how was your day?
Yeah.
Is there anything bothering you? Right. And then you go there and then after you're getting to know the person, then you try to like, hey, I'm thinking about this idea. What do you for work? do you think this will work or something like that?
Also
Right.
communication too, right?
Yeah.
So there are some people out there who just don't like one-on-one communication. It makes them uncomfortable. They're
Yeah.
still, maybe they don't trust you yet. So when
Yeah.
you sit in front of them and you say, what's going on? How
Right.
you feel? Like
Yeah.
they may not want to share that, but maybe they're comfortable in sharing it with a colleague or something in a group setting.
Yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, there might be people who are like, I don't want to share my stuff with other people. I don't want people to feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
You know, I will only tell my manager.
Yeah.
And then that's fine too. But you have to adapt, right?
Yeah.
So for me, for my team, the first thing I always establish is, do you want one-on-ones?
Mhm.
Because one-on-ones are for the employee, not for the leader, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if you're not comfortable in one-on-ones, tell me what you're comfortable with. Do you prefer just only being team meetings?
Mhm.
Do you prefer that we don't have scheduled one-on-ones and you just come to me whenever you need help or guidance?
Mhm.
And I've done that with my team. They've all had very different type of communication styles,
Yeah.
and they all had very different requests on what type of manager they want. So I just adapt so that they're all thriving.
Okay. And that's great to know because like I know there's some managers that would force the one-on-one
Yes.
on people. It's like, and it's like, because like I want to know what you're doing. I want to see what it's basically kind of like micromanaging in a way, but it's like, and then you're trying to like see where you are at, and it's like, okay, what are your goals? Like you gotta understand them and what their communication style. I know there are tests to identify what kind of communication
Yes.
style. I don't know if you make them take them to see how better understand your team, or you basically just talk to them and try to understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's also different types of ways to communicate too, right? Some
Yeah.
people prefer to communicate offline,
Yeah.
maybe in a shared doc,
Yeah.
right? I have one person on my team that was her preference. She would
Yeah.
rather just put everything into a doc and flag things for me to help her with,
Uh-huh.
or highlight achievements that she
Uh-huh.
wants me to kind of highlight for her.
Uh-huh.
And that's what she preferred.
Mhm.
So we never really had one-on-ones, and we had just a shared doc.
Yeah.
But there are other people who really wanted that
Yeah.
one-on-one attention, and that's perfectly fine.
Right.
But I think the thing that we get hooked up on is, one, not everyone is meant to be a manager,
Right.
right? We talked about this,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
a lot of people get forced into it and
Yeah.
they really hate it. And I think the first thing you need to decide for yourself is, you know what, I don't want to be a manager, and that's great.
Yeah.
But make that conscious decision and then work with your manager to see where you can work, either in changing that and becoming just a senior IC, or
Mhm.
if you do want to be a manager, how can I grow you as a manager?
Yeah.
But things like that, um, if you don't want to manage people, it's going to be difficult for you to be a great leader because you already know that that's not what you want to do, and that's okay. That's not a failure.
No, it isn't. You're basically you have other skill sets, and like just because you're forced to do something doesn't mean you have to continue doing it. Right? That's what people understand. Like, I was like, oh, I'm at this really high position now, and I'm expected to deliver,
Mhm.
and like I really don't like being a manager and managing people in general. So like, if they want to get out of it, what's your advice in getting out? Because like, it's hard because like to like go from here to here, or to just like,
Yeah.
or basically go from a lateral movement, right?
Well,
So,
yeah. I think a lot of people feel like if they tell somebody they don't want to be a manager, that's a failure.
Yeah.
You have to readjust the mindset and be
Yeah.
like, no, that's just not my strength.
Yeah, and especially us as Asians, we
Yes.
don't really like fail. Our parents, that
Yes.
our blood is meant like we were born and raised like, hey, we gotta be successful, and we always have to try to impress, our superiors, our
Yes.
parents, and
Yeah.
stuff. So I can see why it's hard for them to like say, hey, I already took this position, but now I don't want this position. Like you see that, that the scenario that that they have to deal with now, because like it's like now to get away from that. So it's what we tell them if you were to tell this person.
Well, first be transparent with your manager,
Right.
because being truthful really builds that trust.
Uh-huh.
But on the other hand, you have to also decide for yourself, if that's the position you're in and you can't get out of being a manager and you're not a great manager,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to move on.
Mm.
Right? I mean, it's hard for people to change and change jobs, but sometimes that's probably going to be the best thing.
Yeah.
a lot of people are getting laid off now and losing their jobs, and
Yeah.
and I know it's very stressful, but maybe in a year or two it's going to be a blessing because it's the change that you needed, and then you end up finding something better and you grow even faster.
Right, and that's a good point too, because if you talk to your superior and they wouldn't let you go, like they still want to be managers, like obviously that's not your place, right? So and then it's like you have to basically want to try to go on somewhere else. Because like a good manager, a good director can understand.
Yes.
And then like they will be there. And like and let's talk about the quality of good management. It's like very people focused.
Yes. Yeah.
And team oriented, they're always there to listen and also deliver to the to your executive peers. So let's talk about the flip side.
Mhm.
So in the survey, one person asked, you know, you know, they want to develop a leadership style so that they can go up and become
Yes.
either a manager
Yes.
or even higher. And as you know, us as Asians, we trying to break through the ceiling. You know,
Yes.
we're getting there, but it's not hard. You know, especially us as a color and if they're women, it's hard to get to that executive level. So what with your ways to go about it is as going up the ladder.
Well, I think you should figure out why you're doing it first. If it's just if it's just to get the salary change and career growth, that's really doing a disservice to yourself because it's not really about you anymore. It's just about the job. And it should be more about you and what your goals are and what you want to do and your work-life balance. Ultimately, that can make or break your happiness, right? And so I think a lot of people tend to get forced or pigeonholed into like, oh, I have to manage people to grow.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of executives, high executives, who absolutely do not manage anybody. C-suite people who do not manage anybody.
Yeah.
And that's great because that's not their strong skill set, and they were very clear about that. And so there's I think we just need to keep in mind that no one's going to judge failure. Talk about failure and us being an Asian, right? Like we have to get off our heads.
Yeah.
That I don't want to manage people is not a failure.
Right. And if you want to do it, you ask yourself why, right? Purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to fail because it's like we're all human and we're learning.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as your team knows that, then I think it's understandable. And because your manager is there will be there for your team. Right?
Yes.
So it's okay to fail and not just be there for as long as you're there for them, then I think
figure out the real reason why you want to be manager. If it's because you want to grow people, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. I think all of us can say that there's been one life-changing manager.
Yeah.
Great and
yeah.
Right. But it impacts us so much and affects us so much that being a manager is not a small thing.
Yeah.
And so I think people maybe need to take that a little bit more seriously because you are helping guide other people's careers. And for me, each individual person that I manage, my job, I always tell this to people, my job is not, being a director. My job is my team.
Yeah.
Whatever it's Twitter Asians or if it's in tech, it's to grow them. It's to identify areas where they want to grow, give them opportunities to explore those. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
But I think if you really at the heart of it really are people oriented and care about growing people, that'll help you adapt your leadership style and just make sure that it's not just one flavor.
Yeah.
Right. Like you really have to adapt to the person managing.
Right. And also after your team recommend they have questions. Yes, John.
What are the pros and cons of the different leadership styles that you have?
Oh yeah. So fun facts. I've never ever had a female manager in my career. I've only had male managers. And I've only worked on teams where I'm the only female. So for the longest time, I was the only director on the team, only female director on the team. So you talk about pros and cons of managers. I always thought my first manager as an intern, I was really upset. I had my first review with him, and he was telling me that I'm really disappointed that no one had anything bad to say about it. I was in college, and I was like, I don't understand. Right? We talk about failure, right? I'm like, wait a minute. Why do I feel like I'm failing? I don't have any negative feedback. That means I'm doing a great job, right? But in reality, he was kind of more highlighting, he wants to find areas for me to grow. And if no one gives negative feedback, there's no way for you to grow, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was a negative manager, but it turns out it was a great manager. And then I've had a really negative manager who was, very vocal and demanding. And I thought that absolute worst manager in my career. But I learned the most because I understood that type of communication style, that's not what I want to do. And I have to actively make sure that I don't do
that. Yeah. And that's important. It's basically trying to understand your manager and yourself. Like sometimes your managers, they're intentionally, they're not there to hurt you, but it's like, it's whatever you have to understand what the manager thinks, right?
Yes.
So it's always, there's always a pro and con to it, but I think if you have a positive mindset to it, it should be.
Yes, absolutely, right? And always, assume that people are coming from a positive space.
Positive space,
exactly.
Right. We do have other questions. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, just if possible, speak up a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So one question we have is, how do you provide effective feedback?
Oh, that's
particularly for peers with whom you had friction working with.
Ooh.
And then I'll let you answer that question and the other question.
That's a great question. So a lot of times people will decide, do I want to tell the manager? Do I want to tell your manager that we're having problems?
Yeah.
Or do I want to deal with it one-on-one? And honestly, it depends on the issue. Because if it is an HR related issue, you should definitely go to your manager, right? Some things, you need to have that manager behind you just in case, right? So you always have to take care of yourself as well too. I would say it depends on the type of feedback. So if I'm trying to say that I can't work with you or I'm having difficulty with you, is it a communication thing? Is it a lack of respect thing? And then perhaps maybe talk to another peer on the team and get feedback.
The second.
Exactly. And maybe approach the conversation and figure out the best way. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to have this conversation, a negative conversation with somebody, you want a positive outcome.
Right.
Right? You don't want, just having an argument is not going to serve you any good. So what's other ways that you could have a more productive conversation? Maybe it's talking to another peer that's close to that person or from another team or something that also works with them. And then maybe you can collectively figure out the best way to approach it, whether it's through the manager or directly with the person.
Yeah.
But honestly, sometimes just talking, sitting with somebody one-on-one and understanding where they're coming from, you might figure out why there's friction.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not communicating well enough. Right? Or maybe things are really, in your life really frustrating and it's affecting your work. And it has nothing to do with me. Right.
No, I completely, and I've been there. That's a situation too, where I actually asked my manager, if there's anything going on, if there's anything that I can do to help her, if I, misunderstood something.
Yes.
Because there's sometimes where I misunderstood something and she just took it off the wrong way. So I always give the good intent to the managers, like, hey, and then try to communicate with that, and then we eventually resolve on its own. But I guess to your question, going to HR is kind of scary.
It is really scary.
It's very scary.
It's a lot of trust.
It's a lot of trust, and once HR knows, that your manager will know, kind of feel like the tension it's physically felt, right, between you or your. So once the manager knows, there could be repercussion, and what's really a good way of doing that? After you talk to your manager and you still want to keep your job, but you can't really do that anymore. So you have to.
And you don't want to go to.
You want to go to HR, but that's the last resort, right? So how do you make that diplomatic?
I would say the other, it's also with the manager, talk to a peer of that manager.
Yeah.
And get advice that way.
Okay.
But there are certain things, let's be clear, there are certain things you should include HR if you have to, right?
Yeah.
There are some
Yeah, of course.
that you can't get away, but the ones that you can get away from,
Yeah.
maybe talk to a peer manager.
Yeah.
And get a second, get their opinion on it. Because maybe there's another approach that maybe you're not really thinking about yet. You just need someone to kind of start to that conversation.
And then say if you exhaust out the option, then
Yeah. So we've had a lot of.
do you have examples for
I mean, it's ultimately a lot of people who are just should not be managing people. Right. And I think that unfortunately it comes out on the person, and the manager is really just becoming frustrating for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, you can't change people dramatically, right? And so we look to other options. Maybe you can branch out to another team. Maybe you could do a hybrid where you're not in the office so often with this person. Or again, maybe it's time for you to move on to another company.
Yeah.
Like that, those are the hard decisions, right?
Right.
We can't make every situation perfect for us.
Yeah.
So we do have to look for different type of options to resolve it.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer, but there's a right direction that you can go.
Or you can try, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing is like you can't really, like you say, you can't change people, but if there's someone that's influencing above, maybe that can change.
Yeah, I mean, you want to spark that type of conversation,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, you want a positive change,
Right.
And if the conversation is not going to end in a positive change, is it going to make someone more frustrated? That conversation,
Yeah.
Right? You want it to be a productive conversation,
Right. And then the next question we have is, as an Asian woman, how do you navigate through an industry that is predominantly led by white males? I find
we have enough time for that answer.
I find it's difficult to demand respect without coming off too abrasive.
Yeah, that's a super loaded question. I still struggle with that every day. At the end of the day, I think I realized I just have to be myself. Not everyone's gonna like me. There are a lot of people that I've dealt with where, I would just, it wasn't gonna work. But I can't change people. I can't make people like me. It's a job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But just be yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I think, at least for me in my career and all the different teams that I've worked with and on, when people really understood where I'm coming from and that I really did want to help resolve the issue or solve a problem, they changed their mindset about me.
Right.
Maybe my delivery may not be everyone's flavor, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve the same goal.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I still struggle with that, being the only female in a very male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
But I can't dwell on that because, again, that's something I can't change. I could just be myself and navigate however way I can navigate.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult, and it's like to get to this ceiling and actually demand respect from everyone, especially when you're being yourself, and like people have to notice you, right?
Well, that's the difference. I don't demand respect.
Okay.
No, I mean, if they respect me, they respect me. If they don't, they don't. I'm not going to demand anything from anybody.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah.
And I think when people really understand who you are, that respect.
How long do you think that usually,
I don't know.
You don't know.
I still struggle with it. I have no idea.
Okay.
You tell me.
I mean, as an Asian myself, it's like, I'm not putting numbers to it. It's like, other previous managers that I worked with, it took me a couple months at least to get them on the radar. It's like, hey, I'm capable of doing things, rather than it's like before they would just just walk past me and not really ignore me. So I feel like it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like just taking more projects that basically tells them that I'm interested in doing more work, and then they end up getting too many projects that just get overloaded with. Yeah. So it's like I don't know what the right approach is either. I think it's just like I'm basically my approach was basically even now to try to get them to notice me and do good work. But I mean, you're more experienced than I
Well,
am.
I would say
Yeah.
I think we tend to say yes to too many things.
Yes, I know,
Right.
right,
And then we tend to look at it as more quantity than
Right.
quality.
yeah,
If I'm doing 10 projects, it's better than this person here doing one project. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily true,
right,
right? Because you could be killing it at one project, and
Yeah.
all my 10 projects were horrible,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I think it's really finding that right balance for yourself to be able to know and say no to some projects,
Yeah.
right? And really focus on the ones that you know that you can have a bigger impact on. And that's not a failure,
No, yeah,
right?
you're
If you say no to a project, we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't say yes to every single project, right? So you have to focus your time in a right way.
Yeah, that's right. You can't say it's okay to say no, but if you're forced to do it, you can't say no.
Being told, yeah.
Voluntold, right? Yeah, you heard of those things, right?
Yes, yeah.
I get voluntold all the time.
Uh-huh.
Getting delegated,
Mhm,
you know, and it's
mhm.
like, oh, can you attend my meetings and you don't know what the meetings are about?
I mean, yeah, that's gonna happen. That's not gonna change,
Right.
right? So it's more changing your mindset and how you kind of react.
Yeah,
And maybe the reason you're voluntold is because you're helping somebody out, and
Right.
maybe just knowing that might help you kind of absorb it better.
so I don't think we do any more. I don't think we finished one question, but we can just like go.
Do you have any recommendations on how someone develop their own individual, discover or develop their own individual leadership?
Leadership style. I think if you really pay attention to the person you're managing, and you figure out what really actually helps them excel. Right? Is it giving them a certain type of project? Is it giving them a certain type of leeway? Really pay attention to that.
If you have a big
Well, that's the thing. If you have a big team, doesn't negate you from having to manage every single person as an individual, right? So maybe then, as an executive or a leader, you need additional managers to help you out, right? But it's doing a disservice if you assume you're managing a large team and I can't manage all these people, so I'm just that's the way it's going to be. Like that's not going to. At the end of the day, you're doing a disservice for your team, and then you're not helping them be productive, right? So really, try to take. I think being a manager is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work, but don't take it lightly. Like you are affecting people's careers and you're helping them grow, and that's a really important thing to do.
What are some tools or strategies that you used to do all of that context switching to address each one of the management styles that employees needed?
That's a great question. It's really kind of just sitting down and understanding the person and letting them speak first. Ask a ton of questions. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? Let's try this. If it doesn't work, let's try something else, right? And kind of keep that going in your head so that you get to that final sweet spot. Okay, this works for them. This is great. They don't like to meet. They only want to do ad hoc offline conversations. But they excel and they thrive that way. Then that's how you adjust it.
Were you saving that in a document so that you?
Oh yes. I do take a lot of notes for individuals. Kind of what's also too. I feel like if they ask me to do something, I need you to help me understand my vacation. What's the new vacation? That's on me, right? So I want them to hold me accountable too. So I take notes too on the things that I have to deliver for each person. Yes, it's essentially creating a big one. But you write in things like, they're struggling with this, or they have this, their father is not doing well, or this project they've been working on for like a long time, and it's really about to kind of come to fruition. But yeah, you do have to take notes, unless you have a really great memory, which I do not. But yeah, you do. You really do have to kind of keep notes, just like you would for any type of project.
That's awesome. I think that's a great way to. So, like you would have like communication style one column, and then type of projects interested in another column, and preferred way of a meeting, or how, or it's like maybe a column for leadership style.
So when I interview people, one of my first questions is, what kind of manager do you need?
Yeah.
Not want, do you need? Right?
Yeah.
What do you need from me?
Uh-huh.
Right? And I try to flesh that out even before in the hiring process, because that already, when you're interviewing someone, you're already building that trust.
Right.
Right? So, you know, asking a ton of questions, making sure, I stay on top of everything. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're managing a big team.
Mhm.
But I feel like that's kind of my role as a manager and a leader. That's what I need to do for my team.
As a manager, what's I don't know if there's a number or amount of people that you can manage to be optimal.
Oh, well, I mean, every company is different,
Right.
right? And every person is different.
Right.
Some people just can only manage one person.
Yeah.
Some people, I have seen some extraordinary leaders, and they can manage 20, 30 employees.
Wow.
And everyone is thriving. It really just depends on the person. That's why you have to really understand for yourself what kind of manager you want to be.
Yeah.
And then, you know, how you excel as a manager.
Yeah.
You know, is it better for you to have a large team? It's better for you to have a small team. Maybe you start with a small team, and then you end up growing, right? You have to build that kind of skill set before you become a big manager.
You know, that's a great, you know, it's a great idea. I think, you know, asking them a lot of questions, taking notes, this shows a bit that you are attentive.
Exactly.
You want to understand them, and you want them to be successful, and you want to be there for them.
Well, they also need to feel seen.
They want, seen.
Right?
Yeah.
For everything that they are.
Uh-huh.
Right? Whatever their background is, their religion, their family lifestyle, you know, they just want to be seen.
Yeah.
Right? And so as a manager, it's my obligation to encourage that, so that other people see them as well too. Not just me seeing them, but my team sees them, or other teams see them, or other executives see them as well too.
Do you have like a suggestion box where people would just slip and say, hey, you know?
Well, I think for me, I'm just an open book. Come to me for whatever you need. I know not every manager's like that, and sometimes it's difficult because you don't know that manager that well, so you don't feel comfortable to do that.
Yeah.
But as a good leader, I feel like I have to build that bridge. If I don't provide the ability for you to feel trusted, you're not going to feel trusted. So I need to kind of build that as a manager.
Yeah, I feel like when I first talked to you, it's like, wow, I wish, you know, I'm a good manager, but like, I wish, you know, I had you as a manager. I was watching right here. You know, I'm not saying nothing bad about my manager. It's like great and all, but it's like, you know, I wish I had you as a manager. You're like, you know, from what I see from you, like you always ask questions.
Yes.
I wish like some people are a manager are more proactive in that, and rather than just like being silent and just assuming, which is bad, because like, you know, you don't want to assume, you know, I don't want that phrase, assume. So.
Yeah. I just try to be the manager that I want for myself.
Yeah.
And I've had amazing managers. Last couple managers were amazing, and I've learned so much from them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of adapted to my skill. So that's why I don't have like this,
you know,
preset, like this is the type of leadership style I do.
You know, basically there's a web of things, like you got some experience here, there.
Yeah.
Can you share some examples of some good and bad stories? Or just like whatever you want to share. It's like, doesn't have to be.
I mean, sometimes we manage people that we know perhaps are unhappy in their role and probably need to make a change. And, you know, not necessarily, you know, you're looking to manage them out, right? And that's probably the most difficult part of it. Is I never want to get to the point where I realize, you know what, I think you've kind of hit, you excelled as much as you can here, and I need to politely encourage you to take other opportunities or look at other opportunities. I think that's the hardest part of being a manager is those type of conversations.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I just have to really keep in mind, like, I'm having these conversations and I'm encouraging you to do this for you.
Yeah.
And I've had to do that before, and it's been very difficult to do.
No, it is. And especially where, you know, like they can excel somewhere else, but you have to tell them like, hey, it's not.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, I get that, and it's as a manager, it's like it's not fun to tell them, you know, the things that you want to tell them, but you're basically helping them.
Yeah.
Right. In a way.
Yes.
but I think that's that's great. And I think another thing is you said one-on-one is one thing, but also having huddles.
Mhm.
Like some people work well in a group set.
Yes.
So like if whoever wants to harp out whatever ideas, like, hey, I think this should be, I'm one of those people, but so hey, I think this could work better, and then the group will see if there's a consensus. Or some people are like, oh, I don't want to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's fault and no fault of their own.
Yeah,
When they have a direct question asked to them,
yeah,
it makes them super feel comfortable and they close up and they don't know how to answer. And then
yeah,
I'm, oh, okay, so I guess there's no answer to this. But no,
Yeah.
really, it's more just you're not comfortable with that communication style. So I need to encourage you. Maybe there's another way. Maybe
Yeah.
you tell me your feedback later,
Yeah.
or you send it to me in a doc, or the other thing too, you have to keep in mind, not English is not everyone's first language, right? So maybe they're struggling in communicating because of that. So what other way can we alleviate that? Maybe they go, they communicate in a different mode or offline or whatever it is.
Yeah. I'll go for it.
Earlier, you talked about how management is
Yeah.
and that your career growth into management roles you have has been more organic.
Yes, I've never asked to be a manager.
Okay, so that answers my question. But my question is, how would you advocate for yourself if management is the path that you want to get to? What are some of the things that you've seen in the industry as you've gone into management roles, as your peers are advancing, that they've had to do to get those roles that are up level?
Yeah, well, I would say like as a manager, my role is to know where you want to go. If you want to go on a manager track, then it's my job to help you get. If you don't want to, that's great. Let's grow you somewhere else. But I think first that manager needs to understand that's where you want to go. Then when you tell them, I want to be a manager, they're probably not going to tell you, oh, okay, sure, we'll make you a manager right away, right? So internally, what are other ways that you can exhibit skill sets of a manager? Being a team leader, helping other people, taking classes, perhaps maybe getting skills in other ways, and eventually getting there. People will see you eventually kind of grow into that role, and then organically, I think that's how it happened for me. They're like, hey, why don't you just manage this team? And I was like, okay. So, but if you want to do it, don't be shy about wanting to be a manager, and don't wait for it to happen, right?
Just do it.
Well, no, I mean, like,
you have to.
get skill sets other ways. Do volunteer work. Maybe you can kind of build up your leadership skills by doing volunteer work outside of work. I have I swear a lot. I have a shit ton of side projects and passion projects, and that's where I can supplement the things I'm not getting at work.
Yeah. I think that volunteering just demonstrates that you're willing to take a step forward, right? To go to working on just becoming that manager, and you'll get seen as a.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, I think as humans, that's all we want, right? Is to be and feel seen and supported.
So I'm going to throw a wrench in there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of currently startup companies right now.
Yeah.
Not everyone can be a manager, but there are people that also want to be a manager, but they can't because of the lack of resources they have. They can't just give you, oh, we're going to do 2 managers for just 1 team, right? So like in that situation, can you still grow, develop that leadership styles that you could become that skill set, become a manager? And if say 10 years, 5 years from now, you don't get that option.
Well, why? I mean, first, why do you want to be a manager, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is it just career growth or salary range? That's fine.
Right.
But if you really care about growing people, then maybe you can exhibit your leadership skills in mentoring other people.
Right.
Right. So that's one thing too that I try to help do is people who are trying to get into the industry, just help mentor them. And that helps me kind of hone in on my leadership skills as well too. So for someone who doesn't manage people yet, I guarantee you have something to teach someone else.
Yeah.
And you can exhibit and kind of hone in your leadership skills and management skills by mentoring other people.
Yeah. And say that you have, you're getting there, you're mentoring people, but like your company would not will not give you that position because of lack of resources. So that the next step would be to move on. To
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that at the end of the day, that's the only thing that you can change, right?
Right.
Unless you're comfortable with that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like growth is not just not just like you stayed in one company, but then the growth is also about trying to move on to another company, see if there's big opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or volunteer work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who need volunteers.
Yeah, of course.
Organizations, yes.
Yeah. And if there are no questions,
Well, I agree that management skills are really important.
Yes.
If that's not the
Yes.
case. But I see a distinction between management and leadership.
Yes.
yes.
So how would you make that distinction, and how would you tell someone to how would you advise someone to become a better leader so people would follow as opposed to get the best out of it?
It's a great question. So there are a lot of people I think who, and again, this is my opinion, this is not facts, right? I, as a manager, truly believe that I'm not just managing a team, that I'm part of that team. Their success is my success. Their failure is my failure. And I need to do whatever I can to help them out. So, if I need to jump in and do something and help someone, 24, we have an on-call process, pager duty. If I have to join a pager duty on the weekend to help, then I'm going to do that, right? And that shows that I'm not above anybody, right? Like I'm just as part of the team as everyone else. And I think people will respect you and come to trust you more by just seeing you do that, right? Like, oh, you need to go, your father's sick and you need to go out of town and you need someone to cover you, and no one else on the team can do it. Well, there's me and I can definitely do it.
Yeah.
I may not know how to do it right away, but someone can teach me and I can pick it up. And I think that's where people actually will tend to thrive more on your team when they see that you can help pick it up. You're not just serving just one role, that there are many different roles that you can help them in. I hope that makes sense.
No, that's totally agree. And you just have to branch out, reach out, right?
I mean, I think I have to know what everyone on my team is doing too.
Yeah.
A lot of people on my team also are very autonomous. They don't need me to micromanage them. They just need me when they need me.
Yeah.
But as a manager, I should also know what they're doing. I should also know how they're progressing on promotion. I should also be able to say why they're being promoted.
Right.
If you as a manager, if I turn to you and I say, and you want to get promoted, and I say, can you write down why you should get promoted?
Yeah, I get some of that too. And it's like, especially I was talking to you yesterday about, I was like, oh, when you write a letter of recommendation, when you write your own letter of recommendation, have you sign it? And then, I'll sign it. That's horrible.
Yes, and then that builds distrust.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say like it's not easy. It's not easy being a manager. It's not easy leading a team. And if it really isn't for you, I encourage you to step away from it.
Yeah,
but if it is for you and it's something you want to try to do, then just remember the reasons why you're doing it.
Yeah. You have to want it and be able to be people oriented.
My greatest success as a manager is seeing people on my team excel over me.
Yeah.
That's the greatest.
Being your mentor, being the mentor for them.
Yes.
And seeing them grow. Like, doesn't that make you feel good?
Yes.
Just seeing like, oh, this person is now a manager as well, or like they excel on this product management project or whatever, and they're just like, oh wow, it's like the company noticed them.
Yeah.
It's like it's because of you, right? Because you help them grow, and I think that's the best thing of having a manager is just to be there for them and watching them. It's like they're like your kids, right? You just give them this, and now you got a gold star. Now you got a gold star, all right? There's one more left. If we don't have any questions, I guess there's no questions online, Jimmy?
Nope.
No? Anyone else? Okay. Can you give the audience your 2 cents? What will you tell them, as a former Twitter manager and executive, to go for your dreams, that basically excel what you want to do, and either whether you want to be a manager or you don't want to be a manager, or just becoming a better leader. What what's your
Yeah,
take on that?
that's I think you just really have to do a lot of self-awareness
Yeah.
and figure out what actually brings you, it sounds corny, but what brings you joy,
Right.
right? If seeing people excel, helping them grow, giving them a path, if that's something that really makes you happy, that's something you should hone in on.
Mhm.
If it's not, then you know what else is bringing you joy? What else can you feel impactful
Right.
and you know making a difference for either your team or the company?
Mhm.
But you know, always just be positive and come from a good place.
Yeah.
Um, and again, everyone is human, and we're all human. And as a manager, you're human, and everyone on your team is the same as well too. So we all have things we deal with, and so just being upfront with that
Yeah.
builds a lot of trust.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it's managers, like you said, managers are human too. I know managers that they would, they would go through, crap, and like sometimes it would leak into, the workplace. Just
Yeah,
because like
well, it always does.
yeah, it does. And then it's like, oh, they basically take it out on you. But then you gotta ask them, it's like, oh, is everything okay? Right? It's like, oh, they could have gotten into a car accident, or the family members not doing so well.
Yeah.
It's being understanding. And so it goes both ways. But uh, thank you, Jen.
No worries.
And I think, Jen has been, in this space, and she's been doing a lot of, community engagement, Twitter, and I just wish that Twitter Asians, or Twitter space,
Twitter Asians.
yeah, Twitter Asians would, continue on, like
It'll continue on through other organizations.
yeah,
I see that.
and the work that you've done for the past 8 years is just amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you, Juan, for introducing me to Jen.
Yes, thank you, Juan.
It's I think like this work, continue work. We're still going to continue working on it, but we're progressing, and that's the main thing. We're getting seen, and we're helping other people, we're helping our communities to equip them, empower them, with resources. What we're doing right now, and I hope you all, the recording, on video, find this helpful, and please feel free to share this to your community, your peers, and if they have any questions, or they would anybody contact you, or
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. We'll figure it out.
okay,
Yeah, send the questions through
okay,
whatever organization, and I'm sure someone will get to it.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you again, Jen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.